views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
This show's audio was via a Skype call.
Get fired up for Spirit Fire Radio with your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer. Get ready to shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in these modern times. Bring purpose to your life through practical spirituality and add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer.
Hello, listeners. It is a delight to be with you. My name is Steve Kramer, and I'm joined by my delightful co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Steve. Glad to be here.
Yes, and very exciting to be starting a brand new month. We are in the month of September, and as you know, each month so far in this season, we have looked at a different principle that underlies our reality. And so far, we have covered interconnectivity, participation, nonlinearity. That was fun, huh, Dorothy? Non-duality. So pretty complex, very interesting subjects that really show us how this universe, how this world within which we exist operates. And we're going to keep that going. And this month, we are going to talk about interdependence. So we are part of an interdependent community that is called life. So we're going to talk about that for the entire month of September. And what a great subject for, actually, they're all great subjects, but it just always seems so apropos to be talking about these topics. You know, we thrive to the degree that we become efficiently, mutually reliant on each other, and okay with that as we recognize our interdependence. It seems that things just are easier. They work out, huh, Dorothy?
They work out, and they also, we're able to learn and grow more because of what we share with others.
Yes, support. It's really an important part of interdependence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you usually have a quote for us at the beginning of a show. I'm wondering if you have one today.
I do, Steve, and this one is from Albert Einstein. He wrote, "Human beings are each a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of our consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty."
Nice. Beautiful. And, you know, there's that word, Dorothy, right? Separated. We talk about separativeness quite a bit. And we have got Einstein quite a bit in our quotes and the Buddha. I always love that there are these figures that come forward in many quotes, equally spiritual ponderers and contemplatives and scientific ponderers and contemplatives. Interdependence, after all, you know, it's a core teaching of the Buddha, right? It's like the awareness of this fact of our interdependence. That's what leads to selflessness and compassion. So, yeah, all about seeing ourselves as a part of the greater whole and then living accordingly. That seems to promote kindness and promote tolerance.
Yes, I think, Steve, it might help our audience to just be really clear about what we mean by interdependence. Sure. So what we're talking about is mutual reliance on and responsibility to another. And what's really important is that all parties are strong in their own right. So it's not a dominant submission type relationship. It's a recognition that everyone contributes and everyone benefits from the relationship, and everyone loses if the interdependence is disrupted.
Mm. So there's a real bridge there to this notion of interconnectedness. And I just wondered if we could take a moment, Dorothy, because our listeners may not know this, but you have written a book that covers a lot of these principles quite in detail, called The Principles of Abundance for the Cosmic Citizen, a book I just love that's covered in Post-its and underlines and wonderful little notes. But what I find interesting, and we've used a lot of these topics thus far, is that the topics we've covered up until now within your book, interconnectivity, participation, nonlinearity, non-duality, in the book you talk about these as principles that underlie our reality. And then it moves to a different heading that talks about the ways in which we function as a group within these laws. So I wondered if maybe you could just, as you were talking about the definition of interdependence, I kept hearing, because we've covered those subjects, I kept hearing so much about participation in there and non-duality and interconnectivity. So I wondered if just a moment as to the difference between the laws and then what moves us toward interdependence.
Sure, Steve. Well, I think one of the ways of thinking about it is that the 4 principles that we've covered so far are, as you said, basic principles that describe how our cosmos functions, and as a consequence of those, we have different ways that we relate to each other, and interdependence is one of those. So we know that from the principle of interconnectivity that we are all interconnected in this huge cosmic energy field, and that while historically that may have been a metaphysical concept, a friend of mine would call it a woo-woo concept, we now know from quantum physics that is actually how to describe our existence, that we are, in fact, individually, we are waves of energy. We don't think about ourselves that way. We tend to think about ourselves as physical, tangible beings, but we are waves of energy that interact with all of the other waves of energy. And as we interact, we create our own reality. That's the participation principle that you talked about. And we do this in a context that is not linear. We use the concept of linear time, past, present, future, to anchor ourselves, to make sense of our experience. But in fact, at one level, everything is happening at the same time. It's a little hard to get our minds around, which is why that month was so interesting, right, Steve?
Right, but
trying to
factual is what we get to, what we got to at the end of that month. Yes, this is a fact. Yeah,
that's right. And then we, being part of this complex structure, means that we have to be dealing with this myth of duality that permeates our language. It permeates the way that we think. It permeates the way that we behave, because duality assumes that you are separate from, different from myself. And we see this playing out in the political environment when people say, for example, with the crisis at the southern border of the United States, in regard to the children being separated from their parents, and people were saying, well, they're not us, Yeah. And in fact, isn't it interesting that one of the members of the Trump administration has said publicly that they truly, when they instituted that policy, they didn't think anybody would care, that anyone would notice. And yet we are all connected to each other, and how we behave towards someone else affects that person, it affects us, and it affects the whole. So all of this brings us to interdependence this month. How is it that we play out this connectedness?
So I keep recalling the word from the quote of delusion that, as you say, they didn't think anybody would care because they are not us and we care only about us, and just assume that fact. That is a delusion. It is an illusion that has been created so that others are under that delusion. And there was even a part of that quote saying, we have to widen our perspective. We need to basically, expand and include and realize that the fact of our interconnectedness, and that if you reduce it down to science, and I find it so interesting that there's a, well, I won't go there. Let's just say that as science has proven, and many would want to not even look at science, because science says, yes, we are all energy, we are all interconnected, that we can't function separate, from the greater whole. We simply cannot exist independent of the greater whole, because as a fact, we are a part of it. So this whole month, I just look really forward to this idea of that I see that interdependence is sort of a precipitation, or even like a manifestation. It's a result of all of these laws being put into motion. And we live it every day. We live it every day. So
that's right.
Wonderful to unfold.
And we have, if I could just interject, one very practical example that I think all of us witnessed, and that was the rescue of that Thai soccer team. It could not be done just by a Thai diver. It couldn't be done just by U.S. Marine officers. It couldn't be done just by the UK or Australia. All of them worked together, and the number of people, the number of professionals that were involved in that chain that brought the boys out of the cave was, I think, a superb example of interdependence and intercooperation.
Yeah, and if you think of not only that all of the people who were connected to that situation with their hearts, with empathy and with care and with prayers and with well wishes and hope, for these kids, not to mention, right, all the technology, all of the shared minds, really quite a feat, and ended quite well. Yes. Nice to hear good
news.
These days.
Well, I know it's nice to hear good news, but I think we need, one of the ways we can put this in perspective is to see that a lot of the challenges that the Trump presidency is creating in the world is his insistence on not being interdependent. His insistence on the U.S. dominating. A trade deal has to be best for the U.S. as opposed to working for all of the partners. And so we have, as a result, people in the U.S. suffering, with border issues. The U.S. farmers don't have the workers that they need, that they depend on, the migratory labor that that used to come across the border easily. And there's an interesting statistic that I came across, Steve. This is an article on economic interdependence, and they were looking at the period of 1820 to 1992. I don't have more current data on it. They say the population increased 5 times, personal income increased 8 times, world income increased 40 times, but world trade increased 540 times. So that's just on an economic level an illustration of the intertwining of the economies of the world through trade.
Fascinating. And I'm sure from 1992 until now, it has even, it has exponentially increased.
I'm sure also.
So, Dorothy, I know we're going to talk about the John McCain funeral, because it's so interesting always how these topics come up, and culture and humanity and our lives just show us, give us the evidence. But we've got to go to a break.
Okay.
So when we come back, more on interdependence.
Stay juicy. Tune in to Your Juicy Love with me, Una Drake, co-hosting monthly with Dr. Pat, and every second Monday at 12 p.m. on Transformation Talk Radio. My show, Your Juicy Love, helps you find the dynamic, life-affirming love you've always wanted. Transform your relationships and bring peace, joy, and juicy, juicy love to planet Earth. For more information, visit unadrake.com.
Welcome back, listeners, to Spirit Fire Radio. Dorothy and I are pleased to be a part of this collaboration, which is Spirit Fire Radio. So we always like to take a minute to talk about the educational nonprofits that each of us are a part of. Dorothy, a bit about the School for Esoteric Studies?
Yes, thank you, Steve. The School for Esoteric Study provides training for persons who have a spiritual practice that they want to deepen. And we do that through training in meditation, study, and service. And we also have a number of initiatives that you can find out about at esotericstudies.net. Each year we have a subjective group conference. This last year it was on, or this past spring, it was on the science of invocation and evocation. And we produce materials in relation to that. But one of the important things for our school is to reach out and work collaboratively with other like-minded organizations. So if any of you listeners belong to such an organization and are interested in a collaboration, please look at the website esotericstudies.net and look at what we have there under intergroup collaboration. This collaboration with Spirit Fire is one of the most important ones to us. It's just a delight to work with you, Steve, on producing this radio program every week.
Oh, thank you. And always insightful and engaging on our side as well. Us being Spirit Fire, we are also an educational nonprofit, and our focus is on generating consciousness and spirituality and ways in which this can be applied to everyday life. We do that through our own meditation practice called the Practice of Living Awareness. It's a free online meditation program. We're actually about to start a brand new round on the 17th. It's a 14-step program. Takes you through mindfulness training and then on to an insight training, all in 14 weeks. We've also got a meditative retreat center in Western Massachusetts where we host meditation, yoga retreats, and teach online classes as well about consciousness and awareness. So you can find out more about the meditation practice, the retreat center, and Spirit Fire as an organization at spiritfire.com. Yes, Dorothy. Awesome. So back to interdependence. Just in hearing the sort of beauty behind the Thai rescue, it just reminds me how much we're bombarded with this sort of us versus them mentality. I just voted today, which felt very good in the primaries for Massachusetts. And the political climate these days just seems to be so polarized. I even think of, when I think of the book, like if you look at the long list of Trump's biographies, one of them is called Surviving at the Top. This whole idea of the powerful single individual and how to stay that person. And then I think of Hillary Clinton's It Takes a Village. The contrast between these two ways of approaching governance or even approaching a way of life are so starkly different. And it just seems these days we often overlook this fact that we are, in fact, interdependent. It is factual. What don't you find so easy to do?
That's right. And that's one of the unfortunate consequences of President Trump's leadership style. He embodies that assumption that relationships are a zero-sum game instead of a win-win, and that trade must be win-lose and one party must dominate. that whole myth, really, about the reality of who we are and how we relate. And you mentioned Senator McCain. I was deeply moved by the funeral service, the 2.5-hour service on Saturday, and the various people who spoke, and how frequently moral compass was mentioned in relation to Senator McCain, which is something that you and I have talked about a lot on this show. Putting the common good, having that strong sense of the common good, and putting that above personal self-interest, putting country above party. There were a number of, you could call them, rebukes for forgetting bipartisanship. And it was especially interesting to me, Steve. I had forgotten this, actually. Joe Lieberman spoke, and he spoke about the experience of McCain asking him to be his vice presidential candidate. And Lieberman said, "But I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican." And McCain said, "That makes it perfect. That it would be a great illustration of the need to work across the aisle." And McCain was talked out of it, but I'm sorry?
Yeah. It was just exhilarating. I remember that moment in history and just sensing this sort of aha-ness of it all. Like, yes, wow, it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've mentioned Justice Ginsburg's friendship with Justice Scalia. Maybe you could say a word about that.
Yes, indeed. I recently saw the documentary RBG, which is just incredible. And, there was a huge segment in that documentary about this very deep friendship between Justice Ginsburg and Justice Scalia. I mean, they go to the opera all the time. They were seen together constantly, laughing, yet they have completely different ideals, rather. Stark contrast between the ways in which they think the government should be shaped and the country should be shaped. But they both agree that made them stronger. They acknowledge that when they shared their differences, it made them more resolute in their point of view. And they would agree to disagree and saw it as, not as a problem, but in strengthening their own resolve and in allowing people to then see very clearly. It allowed them to refine their perspective, made them stronger, and then allowed people to choose, which is democracy, right? I mean, they saw it in a sense as their friendship as being a personal check and balance, which is really, the intended structure of a democracy. So quite beautiful in that.
That's great, and I think that also underscores the point that in being interdependent, it doesn't mean that we become carbon copies of each other. We can still have very different perspectives, and as you said, the listening in a respectful way to the other person helps to build the bond of community, of a community of diverse perspectives.
And this idea, that McCain, or not, the fact that McCain asked George Bush and Barack Obama to be speakers is just beautiful. I mean, this man respects the relationship that he formed in running against these two men. And I mean, I don't even like to use the word lose, but they obviously won the vote both times. But he had great respect for them, and they had great respect for him, and just such a lovely sentiment, in that all last week or all last weekend. It was really quite nice indeed.
I think one of the difficulties that people face in thinking about interdependence is that they tend to confuse it with codependence. And I wonder if you could share some thoughts about how codependence is different from interdependence.
Well, yeah, I mean, we often we can confuse the two, and it sounds very similar, right? Codependence and interdependence. So, codependence is where we become psychologically reliant on another. So we put our own needs aside and we're relying on conditions rather than ourselves. Like, I am okay if you're okay, or if only you acted this way, then I would be okay. So it sort of negates that whole principle of participation, that we create our own reality. It sort of allows another to create your reality for you. So it's totally based on conditions. It makes me think of this idea of unconditional love versus personal love. So we become attached to a condition, and unless that condition changes, we're out of balance. We're not right. Whereas unconditional love is a detached love. It doesn't make it any less, but it says that I have a love in my heart. I want to share that with you. I see the love in you, and together we can share this, and together that makes us stronger. And so, I'm sure so many of us have had codependent relationships where I'm just going crazy because this person is driving me crazy. We mature out of that as we come to know ourselves, as we come to just understand the very nature of relationship, that we are responsible for our own happiness. We are responsible for our own alignment. And then as we share that with others, we realize that we create more as a result, rather than trying to control another so that we can be okay. It comes down right to a me. It's all about me, this idea of I at the center, right?
Absolutely. So I want to introduce a concept that I know we're going to come back to next week, but it is part of what undermines our sense of interdependence, and that's anthropocentrism, which is a belief that humans are at the center of the universe. That we are at the apex of evolution is one way of putting it, but that basically what happens in the world revolves around us. So the me becomes humanity. It's us, and our needs are the ones that need to be met, regardless of what it does to any other species. And what's interesting is, if you think about it, is that the communities that are particularly aware of other life forms or relationships with the living earth are ones that we tend to label as primitive, right? We see that people, societies that evolve, that mature, move away from that sense of connection with the earth. And yet the earth is what makes it possible for us to survive and thrive.
Yes. And tend to be the happiest, right? Those cultures tend to be very connected. That sense of interconnection, interdependence actually leads to a sense of balance within themselves, a balance within their relationships, and all smiles abound. Dorothy, we're at a break, and when we come back, we are going to continue this discussion. Fascinating, lovely discussion. We'll be right back.
Did you know that all of the shows on the Transformation Radio Network are available as podcasts to stream or download?
Really?
Check us out. Go to transformationradio.fm. We have business shows, spiritual shows, energy healing shows, and pretty much everything in between. Something for everyone, guaranteed to inspire, educate, and transform. We are transforming the world, one listener at a time.
Living Lighter Radio with Jason and Patricia. We have an ecosystem approach to your life. Tune in weekly every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio as we, Jason and Patricia, discuss what's truly holding you back. We offer you the tools you need to reach your goals and at the same time be living lighter. For more information about Living Lighter, visit www.livinglighter.org.
To find answers to life's questions, you need to look within yourself. Dr. Glenna Rice brings your questionable conversations on Transformation Talk Radio each month. Tune in each month for insight into how you can live up to your full potential. Dr. Glenna is a physical therapist, certified Access Consciousness, and Access Body Class Facilitator. How does it get any better than this? For more information on Dr. Glenna Rice and her work, visit glennarice.com.
Love Living Radio Ignite Your Whole Being with Emily Perkins is a show for those looking to explore the sparkling magnificence of their inner selves. Tune in every second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific as Emily sheds a radiant light of love on the beauty and power that resides within you. Discussing love in all its forms through conversations that provoke awareness, curiosity, and expansion, Emily shares the unlimited power of love. For more information or to listen to this show, visit lovelivingholistics.com.
Dream on, fly high, and live adventurously on The Laura Meeks Show. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as host Laura Meeks guides you in finding your unique gifts and bringing them to life. As a certified life coach, speaker, and veteran bomber pilot for the U.S. Air Force, Laura knows how to follow a dream. She is ready to support you so you can dream on, fly high, and live adventurously. For more information on Laura and her work, visit flyhighliving.com.
Wow. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. This is Talk Radio to Thrive By. I'm telling you, I got to pinch myself some days because when each of us gets called to do something that we so not thought was in our wheelhouse to do for a purpose that's so much greater than us, we get to show up and shine.
If you would like to show up and shine on the Dr. Pat Show as a co-host or sponsor, send us an email to inspire@thedrpatshow.com.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. Dorothy and I are talking about interdependence for the entire month of September. And Dorothy, you made such a great point. We had to go to a break. I feel like we just sort of left it hanging there just a bit because we are going to talk next week about other life forms and this fact that we are quite interdependent with not only all of the universe, but specifically with the Earth. We are of the Earth. We sometimes, as you said, feel like we are here to steward and rule the Earth, but yet, we are just an aspect of the Earth. And as we learn to live in harmony with it, we really expand and find that we have a richer life and a sense of interconnectedness with greater communities. So, for me, it becomes so much about education. You mentioned balance, and I think of balance is only really necessary when we know what we're working with, when we understand all the parts. So it seems like, generating a sense of curiosity and, as you mentioned with the School for Esoteric Studies, meditation, study, and service, it really is about participating in the world and getting to know it and pondering it, studying it, learning about it. It seems that then helps us generate a sort of sense of reverence and then allows us to, develop a sense of altruism, of not only wanting to help other individuals, but wanting to help all beings on the Earth. Yeah?
It can lead there. Ideally, it leads there. But one at the core of interdependence is the concept of goodwill. The thinking well of others, the approaching others with respect, acknowledging their inherent dignity, and the challenge is to extend that to all life forms, not simply other humans. And all too often when we talk about goodwill, we are really talking about goodwill. It's like it's a stretch to have it be goodwill outside of our family or community, and include other humans. But we really need to be thinking about the rest of our particular space. our Earth. And just to foreshadow a bit of next week, I just want to put out there that scientists since 2001 have asserted publicly that the Earth is a living, sentient entity. We know that there are a wide range of mammals that are certainly equivalent to us in terms of intelligence and social relationships and being self-aware. There are a lot of plants that have the same that are also very socially focused, very self-aware. The Bolivians talk about minerals as blessings, and so I'm looking forward to that conversation next week. But I just want to put it in our awareness that as we think about interdependence, we need to always be thinking about it in terms of our entire life system.
Well, and goodwill as well, as you mentioned, which is such a beautiful correlation, this idea of, goodwill being at the core of interdependence, because you can't help but be in awe, of this very complex, very diverse system that we are a part of. And as you say, as we sort of we have a bit of resistance to saying, oh, really? Now I've extended goodwill to, my partner, my kids, my coworkers. I got to extend it to the trees and the whole planet as well. But, once you start to really explore all that, it generates energy. It really, I just love that idea that goodwill is generated as we go deeper, as we take the initiative to learn and respect and try to be benevolent and helpful, not only to others, but within all of our actions, that harmlessness, we take that into consideration in every way. I think of the, I'm a chef here at Spearfire, among many things, and I just think all of the different components that go into putting a very healthy, beautiful meal that will support one's practice while they're here at a meditation center, all of the people involved and all of nature that is involved, the seed and planting of the seed and the soil and the rain and all of the proper balances, the person who cultivates and then gathers and then packages and ships and unpacks and make sure food is stored safely and then cooked properly, and all of the processes, this chain of interdependence. And it, we sort of just think of the people, but my goodness, it extends to every aspect of our globe. Just, to look, your next meal, look at the food on your plate and just for a moment ponder the process and the levels of interdependence that are necessary for that. For that to arrive on your plate to feed you. Without it, you wouldn't be here. So, indeed, much goodwill. We hope, at least here at Spiritfire, we go to great measures to make sure that goodwill is a concern all along the way. So, may it be so that the food on your plate, goodwill is a part of it.
Well, I think that's beautifully articulated, Steve, laying that out. And to me, the corollary that goes along with that so often we overlook is being thankful to all of the beings that have sacrificed themselves, really, so that we can be nourished. Because sometimes we think about, the animals that get slaughtered for us, but we may not think about the plants also. All of the entities in that cycle that live their lives and then allow us to be healthy because they become part of us.
Yes, indeed. Gratitude goes a long way, right? And I find that as I ponder interdependence, as I become aware of it, that I really appreciate the world I live in. I appreciate the diversity. And it does seem it's what we need today as we really expand our view of the ways in which we exist in this complex structure. We realize, wow, diversity is actually a beautiful, exciting, wonderful thing. And today we see that it's being used in a way that just generates anxiety and fear. This idea of being solely concerned with me, with myself. It can get in the way for sure.
Well, you can think about think about a machine that's running smoothly, and then one of its parts, a ball bearing or whatever, stops functioning properly, and it kind of goes clunk, 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 and it's difficult to deal with. We can think on our own personal experience level about experiences where we have had just a beautiful social interaction that has been very renewing, very uplifting, very empowering. And then we can think of a similar situation where one person or more was very critical, very grumpy, very, uncooperative, and how that shifts the experience that we have together. You know what I mean? That the whole energy is very, very different. And each of us contributes to either the positive, uplifting experience or the negative through our thoughts and our feelings, all of the energetics that we put out, not just our physical actions.
Yeah, and so much goes toward, creating space for another to learn, to bring balance to thoughts that might not work for the greater good or help, that might be a bit distorted or out of sync and creating a bump. I only say that because we often hold these silent retreats at Spirit Fire that go on for 5-7 days. And it is so amazing. We watch, my partner and I, who are the chefs and managers, and we watch these groups. And there are different instructors and teachers, and we watch groups of 20 people that are in silence for a week. And one just finished the other day. And amazing to watch these people in silence as day 3, day 4 comes along. They really learn how to support each other, how to cooperate with each other, how to participate as a whole so that everything can run smooth, so that each other are supported. And you can see if somebody's having a bit of struggle with the silence, you can tell that the whole group is creating space for them to come to balance, for them to be okay. They feel supported. They lean into the group field. It's actually, Dorothy, sometimes a vision. It brings tears to my eyes sometimes watching them, because it really is a vision of this realized humanity where we really are all cooperating, working together, and trying to participate on a level where where altruism comes first. And it's very lovely. I feel blessed to get to witness that, once a month at least, that sort of cooperation. But certainly we all can try it. The next time you go out to a meal, the next time you're in a group, you can just see how, one sharp criticism can really shift the whole energy and affect the whole group. Indeed.
Absolutely. And one of the other things to be aware of, which is so critical in interdependence, is that there is balance in give and take. All too often we may take without giving back, or we give off balance, right? We extend too much, and so keeping that balance and giving also. I'm reminded of something that my mother used to say, which was in a relationship. She said, if each of you goes 75% of the way, you'll probably meet in the middle. In other words, we tend to overestimate, how much we're contributing. But I always thought that was great.
Lovely. So, Dorothy, we're at a break. Listeners, we're going to talk about the Declaration of Interdependence. I'm very excited about that. So, Dorothy, looking forward to it. We'll be right back after these messages.
powerful your thoughts and beliefs are in determining your experience of your life? Is it really true that simply by changing some of the words you use in your day-to-day language, that you can change your life? I'm Megan Edge. Join me on Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host Dr. Pat on Transformation Talk Radio. I look forward to seeing you there.
To find out more about Megan Edge, visit her website at meganedge.ca.
Hi, I'm Steve Kramer of Spirit Fire Radio, and I believe that meditation changes everything. It leads us in the direction of greater well-being, and that's a fact. I struggled with meditation for years. I understood the principles, but I found it hard to incorporate them into my everyday life. Spirit Fire's meditation practice changed that. It's called the Practice of Living Awareness, and it's taught in 14 steps. These are 14 tools that I can use in any moment, on and off the cushion. Steps like smile, flow, and ground of being support my clarity of mind while I'm navigating the ups and downs of modern life. That's why it's called the Practice of Living Awareness. If you'd like to add meditation to your daily experience, the Practice of Living Awareness is free, online, and it's suited for any level of practitioner. Visit spiritfire.com for more information. And be sure to check out Spirit Fire's meditation retreats in Western Massachusetts. It's all there at spiritfire.com.
Tune in to People Like Us Radio with Megan Lyons, transcending the trauma of the human experience. Megan will be raising the universal consciousness by empowering listeners with their own inner strength, working past trauma and abuse. Megan will show you how to find true healing and inner peace through the art and practice of self-love. Tune in every first and third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. For more information about Megan and her work, visit enterthelightllc.com.
What is a brilliant culture, and how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you align your culture with your business strategy for exceptional results. Looking for a culture that drives organizational excellence? Listen to Cultural Brilliance Radio, the second and fourth Friday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit culturalbrilliance.com.
Would you like your next chapter to be free from fear and angst? Tune in to Your Next Chapter Radio, navigating through life's transitions with Shelley Ryan the fourth Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Shelley's contagious enthusiasm guides you through life's transitions deliberately, mindfully, and funnily. For Your Next Chapter coaching or to listen, visit YourNextChapterCoaching.com or call 602-617-8351. Next.
Welcome back, listeners. Just before the break, I mentioned that we were going to read one of the various declarations of interdependence. Just beautiful. Dorothy, do you want to sort of introduce this idea? I know there have been, it seems like every so often there's a new one that seems to come into our consciousness. Maybe you could say a bit about the declarations of interdependence.
Sure. Well, what's interesting in the United States, in 1945, Ellis E. Patterson read a Declaration of Interdependence into the congressional record. Now, I don't know how many Americans are aware of that. I don't know how often it's referred to, but you can certainly get a copy of that original one. And then just to touch on two others, in 1976, Greenpeace presented a Declaration of Interdependence that was adopted at the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia and also by several intergovernmental groups. But both of those focused only on human interdependence. In 1992, the Suzuki Foundation presented a Declaration of Interdependence that extends beyond humanity, and some of it became part of the Earth Charter that is in circulation. So it's that third one that I thought we could read, Steve, And it's in 3 sections. So let me start us off with the first section, which is titled, This We Know. We are the earth through the plants and animals that nourish us. We are the rains and the oceans that flow through our veins. We are the breath of the forests of the land and the plants of the sea. We are human animals related to all other life as descendants of the firstborn cell. We share with these kin a common history written in our genes. We share a common present filled with uncertainty, and we share a common future as yet untold. We humans are but one of the 30 million species weaving the thin layer of life enveloping the world. The stability of communities of living things depends upon this diversity. Linked in that web, we are interconnected, using, cleansing, sharing, and replenishing the fundamental elements of life. Our home, planet Earth, is finite. All life shares its resources and the energy from the sun, and therefore has limits to growth. For the first time, we have touched those limits. When we compromise the air, the water, the soil, and the variety of life, we steal from the endless future to serve the fleeting present.
Beautiful. And I will read the second stanza, which is called This We Believe. Humans have become so numerous and our tools so powerful that we have driven fellow creatures to extinction, dammed the great rivers, torn down ancient forests, poisoned the earth, rain and wind, and ripped holes in the sky. Our science has brought pain as well as joy. Our comfort is paid for by the suffering of millions. We are learning from our mistakes. We are mourning our vanished kin, and we now build a new politics of hope. We respect and uphold the absolute need for clean air, water, and soil. We see that economic activities that benefit the few while shrinking the inheritance of many are wrong. And since environmental degradation erodes biological capital forever, full ecological and social cost must enter all equations of development. We are one brief generation in the long march of time. The future is not ours to erase. So where knowledge is limited, we will remember all those who will walk after us and err on the side of caution.
And the closing stanza is titled, This We Resolve. All this that we know and believe must now become the foundation of the way we live. At this turning point in our relationship with Earth, we work for an evolution, from dominance to partnership, from fragmentation to connection, from insecurity to interdependence.
Beautiful. Very nice, and really brings to the forefront all that we've been talking about, and certainly all that we will go deeply into next week as we talk about valuing all life forms.
Well, and I think since this was written in 1992, things have gotten even more critical. You know, we now have scientists saying that we may, it's not just that we're approaching the tipping point, we may be headed over the tipping point, that the kind of climate change that we're experiencing, there may be parts of that cannot be that cannot be resolved in a positive way. Yes. And we'll come back to this next week, Steve, I know, but I think it's really important for us to remember that the Earth can do just fine without us. You
yes.
know, we're one of 30 million species. We cannot survive without the Earth.
Yes.
And we seem to be forgetting that in many of the decisions that we're making.
The Earth has seen 5 mass extinctions already,
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and indeed, when this was written, that line that says, for the first time we have touched those limits. Indeed, many scientists are saying that we have gone beyond those limits. Now, I'm really touched, though, in just pondering the past extinctions that were, mass extinctions. I mean, one of these wiped out 96% of life on Earth. I'm touched that we have got the capacity to create something like this, the Declaration of Interdependence, that we have, I have optimism and hope that we can and have the capacity to reverse some of the damage we've done, and that this is a fever, that may break, and it feels like it is really, may it be so that the tipping point is the fever, and that we may come to our senses and find some balance soon, indeed.
Well, and it's interesting how the Earth tries to help. There are those bacteria that developed that eat oil,
Yes.
in oil spills. There are many examples like that. It's just that we overwhelm the resources of Earth to bounce back, although it tries very hard to be helpful to us.
Yes. Homeostasis, the Earth is a living organism. It can get to the point where it's just not able to bounce back. So we certainly indeed hope it's not there yet. Mushrooms, you mentioned, right? That the eating away. I can't wait to talk about mushrooms next week. So fascinating. Anyway, listeners, it's been such a delight, and Dorothy, thank you as always for your wisdom. It's been great, and I look forward to the entire month. So, listeners, just a reminder that you can find our archives if you'd like to listen to any of the past themes to our past shows. You can find those archives at spiritfireradio.com, or also at the website for Transformation Talk Radio. Dorothy, it's been great. Any final words?
No, I think this is going to be a really exciting month, and I think it's very relevant to what's going on in the world right now. And so I look forward to the next 3 weeks.
Wonderful. Listeners, we will be back discussing more on interdependence. It's been a joy. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Fire Radio. Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern for your weekly guide to purposeful living and practical spirituality. Join hosts Steve Kramer and Dorothy Riddle as they shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in your everyday life. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. To learn more, visit spiritfireradio.com.